Welcome back everyone to my Let's Play of Final Fantasy II for the Nintendo Famicom system. Our party, Fess, Maxine, Booker, and their pirate friend Leila are still here in the Tropic Cave trying to find the Black Mask. Last episode they found a village in this cave of a bunch of strange creatures who wore masks. They warned us not to go down to the bottom of the cave to get the Black Mask. But the Black Mask is one of two masks that we need to eventually get the ultimate magic. The other being the White Mask. We don't know where the White Mask is, but we learned that the Black Mask was here from the folks in Mysidia. There's another item that we're going to need, the Crystal Rod. That's in a cave near Mysidia. I thought about going there, but the monsters on the overworld and in the cave are just a little too tough. But there's some good equipment on the first floor of that cave, but we weren't strong enough to do it, so. We detoured to this cave, though, because we're also probably not strong enough to do the Deast Cave where we're supposed to be, because the enemies there are pretty tough, so. This cave, because it's pretty long, and the enemies are a fairly appropriate level to where we're at in our development, will be a good training ground to get us to the proper level and skill levels for our weapons and magic and hit points and stuff. To be able to take on the Deast Cavern, so we'll be heading back there later after this. So, but we still have quite a long way in this cave. So, I guess that's the only thing that's tough about this cave is that it's pretty long. It's going to take 2 more episodes, this episode and the next episode, to finish it off. So, the real difficulty in this cave comes from its length. But thankfully we were prepared for that. We ended up bringing a bunch of ethers for Fess and Maxine. They'll eventually use them. Remember, if you're using a consumable item, it's better to use it in battle because you get more bang for your buck out of that item. So, and one of the things that makes this cave pretty long is there's a lot of split paths in it. Like I said, we took that one split path to get to the village, and there's going to be another split path a little bit later on, so there's a lot of backtracking. That's where the warp spell comes in handy. When I did my test run for this, I didn't have the warp spell because I figured out if I need to get out of a dungeon, I can just use the teleport spell to get out. But the warp is good for inside dungeons when you just want to go back a floor or two, so definitely save some time and some walking, and I shouldn't feel it in terms of my stats. Because obviously when I had a backtrack I got into more battles, so yeah, so we're just going to continue working our way down here. This is where you would get the Scourge Tome if you want, like, if you didn't get lucky and get a drop. There's actually 2 Scourge Tomes in this dungeon, so it's a good thing we got it dropped earlier by those those magicians, because it allows us to actually work on it a bunch here. So now, of course, that would have meant that we would have had more chance to work on our other spells, but they wouldn't be leveling as fast because we're basically fighting level 3-4 monsters. So our stuff like our level 4 and 5 Blizzard and Fire spells wouldn't be getting as many points in use. So another Scourge Tome. So it's weird that they wait so long to give you that tome, and then there's 2 of them in the same dungeon. So, but maybe they figured maybe you might use have 2 people specialize in black magic. So. Up to this point, you would have just been working on 2 people with the 3 elements, so I don't know what the game developers were thinking. So I know they were thinking they wanted to try something different than Final Fantasy I, which is why this game is so different, with the leveling system. A lot of people complain about the leveling system, but once you understand what it works, it's pretty good. So you don't really need to do, like, grinding. Like, there's no points where you had to stop and grind, go out of your way. I know I did one episode, but that was only to get money real quick, and it was like a short, 20-minute grind to just get a few spell books off those magicians and ogre mages, just so I can sell them, so I'd have the necessary money to buy an ether to get through the snow cavern. But yeah, that's really the only grinding that you'll really need to do. So I may do a unintentional grind a little later, but it shouldn't really affect much of anything. And the other way to say, like, it's unintentional, or well, it'd be intentional, but I guess I should say it may not be a grind, because I want to go back and get some rare enemies. There's a rare enemy that I did not encounter in Kashuan Keep. It's around Kashuan Keep. It can be in the overworld there, and it can also be in Kashuan Keep. It has a little better chance to be found in Kashuan Keep. I mentioned it when I was in Kashuan Keep, the Goblin Prince, but I'll be going back there to find that enemy. But back then, the enemies are level 1s, basically, so it's not going to really inflate my stats and all to go back there, because the weapon levels are so much higher. So, speaking of enemies you want to find, here's another new enemy, the Gigan Toad. So I guess it's gigantic toad. And like toads in future Final Fantasies, this is, I guess, where they get the whole thing that toads are weak against ice. So we're gonna learn that that's a staple. Reptiles and things that I guess hibernate are weak against ice. So some toads hibernate. I heard that they kind of bury themselves in the mud, kind of stay under there while the rest of the world freezes over and stuff. So not a big fan of frogs. Don't know too much about frogs. I know that we had like the best frogs in this little pond, this little stream where I grew up in. I say that because down the street there were 2 kids. They were about 4 or 5 years younger than me. 2 brothers, Scott and Shane, and their older brother Chris. He was 1 year above me. He was on the wrestling team with me. But they would always go down to this creek and catch frogs. And they caught the frogs because they would always enter the county fair. There was a frog race, and you just basically, everyone would go around the circle and put their frog on the circle, and then whoever frog got to the center of the circle would win. And those 2 won a lot. It seemed like every year they were in the top 3. And they'd always get their frogs from this one creek down by the Marlin Dam, which has since been drained and is emptied out. So no more frogs down there anymore, because the creek would run off the dam into the Schuylkill River. That's where but yeah, the frogs there were just, I guess there was something in them. They just hopped really good and knew where to hop, I guess, is more appropriate. So I'm thinking of those wiener dog races that you see. Sometimes it's not necessarily the fastest wiener dog that wins, but you might have the fastest wiener dog in the world, but if it's easily distracted, sometimes you see the dogs come out and they run to the side, or they run to sniff another dog. It's usually the dogs that are focused on running to their person on the other end that win, go straight. So wiener dogs are funny little animals, so little dachshunds. So they're a dog and a half long and half a dog tall. It's like somebody pushed down on them and squished and pulled them out. There was a little a GIF, GIF, and there was animated things. I think that's called. I don't know if it's GIF or GIF, how you pronounce it. But it was of a guy, and he was on a conveyor. There was a conveyor belt of dogs running past him, and he would just get the dog and stretch it out to make it like a wiener dog. So it was a little funny. So somebody sent it to me. It's like, this is how wiener dogs are actually made. So. But I wonder how these moose and yellow jellies are made. So they're made with high defense in mind. Yeah, you're only gonna deal damage to them physically when you do that critical hit. So we're gonna have to rely on Maxine and her magic and Leila and her magic, but she unfortunately doesn't have an ether. I could have given her an ether, but it would kind of be a waste. Besides, she's happy to work on her bow level, so she'd only be good against the yellow ones in the back. No, I mean the red ones, because they're weak to thunder. And the yellows are weak to, I think, both fire and ice. So I like it when they're color coded. So I think in Final Fantasy IV they're kind of color coded. So the red ones are weak to fire, yellow ones are weak to lightning, blue ones are weak to ice. There is no like poison element there. So yeah, they made it like pretty nice and easy. It's like, oh, I'll just hit them with the color of the magic that they does the same color as them, and that'll be their weakness. But not so lucky here. But luckily, you know, there's an internet bestiary, so, and I guess, like I said, there's an in-game bestiary in future versions of this game. I know there's one for the Game Boy Advance, and I'd imagine they probably had the same thing in the PlayStation port, the Origins. My cousin has all the Final Fantasies on the PlayStation. That console seems to have a bunch of remasters and remakes and redo games. So he has like there's like a Mega Man collection that has like Mega Man 1 through 6 on it, and then there's a second one that has 7 through 10 on it, and then he has one that has the Mega Man X collection on it. It has like 1 through X8, I think. So, and then like I said, there's all the Final Fantasies that were re-released on that. I think the only one that wasn't re-released on that was Final Fantasy 3. So, because 1 and 2 were released together as I think Final Fantasy Origins. Then 4 was released with Chrono Trigger, and then 5 and 6 were released together, and then 7, 8, 9 were PlayStation came out, and all the rest I think all came out on just PlayStation. So I think until 13 was like cross-patterned with X also came out on the Xbox. I know, and 7 and 8 came out on the computer as well. Now I think all of them are on computer, so I know they just did like the remaster, the pixel remasters, so of 1 through 6. So, but I no need to get them because I have 1 through 6 here, so no need spending money if I don't have to. So, but I'm gonna have to look into on Game FAQs. They have a little section. I got a few computer games. Eventually, I'm gonna have to stream them. But several sites. The only one that I use is GOG.com, Good Old Games. I have an account on there for its old computer games. That's how I got the Ultima games. But sometimes they release free games, so there's quite a few free games that I got off of them. But if you have like other game services like Epic and Steam, are two big ones. If you go on, just look up on Game FAQs, go to the boards section. There's a tab called Boards, and one of them is like free PC games, and people will post what games are being released on certain days on one of those major 3 streaming game streaming services or game downloading services if they're not really streaming. And more just games you can buy, old sites where you can buy old games. So I'll eventually get those Ultima games in. So that's how I got Ultima 4. Well, I ended up getting Ultima 4 with a collection, but Ultima 4 is free on GOG, and then the 2 spin-offs of Ultima 6, well, they're not spin-offs, but they use the same engine as Ultima 6. Savage Empire and Martian Dreams Yeah, every single one of the Ultimate games, they used a new engine for. And apparently they did the Ultima 6 engine, and you know, obviously then when they went to Ultima 7, they used a new engine, but they wanted to get a little bit more mileage out of the Ultima 6 engine, because there's a big graphical leap between 6 and 7. So I guess while they were developing 7 and making that big leap, you know, they wanted to still, you know, be profitable and put out games. So they put out those like 2 spin-offs, the Savage Empire and Martian Dreams. So, I've seen people do a Let's Play of them. The Martian Dreams looks pretty cool just because it's like with space. And, you know, I'm a big fan of space type things. So that's why I had some of my rats used to do like space things. So once I get the 2 new boys, I'm gonna have to start giving jobs to these new rats. So Princess Guinevere's been at the house now for about 2 months. She's been freeloading the entire time. So, but I didn't want to put her to work because she has her big operation coming up. So she gotta go. Then she gets spayed, and then once she gets spayed, then we can get the other 2 boys, Bub and Bob from the Rat Rescue, named after the Bubble Bobble protagonists. I will eventually do that game too. My brother and I used to play that game all the time as kids. So it should be interesting to be able to play it single player. You know, because there's certain strategies that we use. You know, I'm thinking of level 35, for instance. It's called Jump, and there's like 3 bubble busters come down in the floor, and then there's like a ball in the middle, and then there's 2 platforms. Well, 4 platforms with 2 on each side, and a bubble buster appears on both of them. So if you take too long taking out the enemies on the bottom, then, you know, you go up top and the enemies will, you know, be there to ambush you. So we'd always have the strategy that I would go up top and he'd take care of the 3 on the bottom, and I'd take care of the 4 on the top. So that way, while they were dropping down from the ceiling, I'd be making my way up to the top, and then he'd be positioning himself to take out the bottom ones. So we had little strategies like that. You know, obviously, you know, a lot of the games are symmetric. A lot of the stages are symmetrical, so the same enemies are on the right side as on the left side. So, and the terrain is the same. So it's like I take the left side, you take the right side. You know, or some level. Well, one level in particular, level 99. To get the best ending, you have to do 2 things in that level, and they're both on different sides of the stage. So my brother was the 2-player, and he'd always get the magic potion that made the secret door appear, and then I would go into the door, which was on the left side. It'd be a little tough to do it with just 1 player. If you don't go that secret route, which unlocks like 15 extra stages, and then the true boss. If you don't unlock that thing, you go to just level 100, and you fight the true boss, but when you defeat him, it just gives you like the bad ending. It says, you know, like, hey, you gotta find the secret road. Actually, I guess there's like 3 endings in that game. 4, if you think about it. There's the bad ending if you don't go through secret road. Then there's like another bad ending if you defeat the regular boss, the final boss, but you only do it with 1 player because you need 2 players. So a lot of things you can do if you could just there's a trick, you pause the game if you're just playing 1 player, and then on controller 2 you press select, and that would make as long as you had 1 life in reserve, then the player 2 would pop in, and then you would just pop the bubble with player 1, you know, and then you beat the game, you get the good ending. So that's the second and third ending, you know, defeating the final boss with 1 player, another bad ending, defeating the final boss with 2 players, the good ending, and then it unlocks another thing called Super Bubble Bobble, and which is basically the stages recolored, and some of the enemies are different. So they're like like all the enemies are the same, but like they'll be on different stages. So like the beluga whales are replaced with like hullabalubas and vice versa. And I think the Incendio monsters take the place of bubble busters. So it requires a little bit of new strategy for some of the levels. But yeah, if you beat that, then you get like the fourth ending, where I think your dinosaurs at the end turn into humans. And the dinosaur, your girlfriends who you rescue, turn into humans too. So, which I saw somebody playing Bubble Bobble 2 and Lord BBH on Twitch. He plays old arcade games and tries to 1cc them or 1 credit clear. Basically, if you play the game on 1 quarter and beat it. And he was playing Bubble Bobble 2, and in that game, you were the females basically going to rescue your boyfriends. So basically swapped out who's doing the rescuing and who needs to be rescued. Plays kind of similar though. You know, there's obviously some new enemies, new stages, but a lot of the old enemies make a return, and the mechanics are basically the same. Trap enemies in bubbles, and pop the bubbles, and the more you pop at a time, the more points you get. And points give you extra lives and stuff like that, so... And you can also get extra lives spelling out the word extend. But... speaking of life, we'll have to eventually work on that life spell, but it's not really a priority. That's something I'll probably end up doing later on, once I get Suna up to level 8. That's obviously more important to heal all those status ailments. But whatchamacallit, because all that leveling up the life spell does is it means that your character, if they get hit with the life spell, you know, you need to revive them, they will get more hit points when they get revived. So, it's not all that important because, like I said, you know, we'll eventually buy, you know, high potions and ethers and stuff like that, or elixirs. And, you know, even if somebody comes back to life with, you know, single-digit hit points, we can heal them with, you know, Fess's Cure Spell, or high potions, or an elixir. So, but it'll be something eventually, like I said, to level during, you know, battles when he's not doing anything, to also hopefully get, you know, a spirit increase. So if you use magic 15 times in a battle, I think they said you're guaranteed to get a spirit increase, so it might be something to do during, you know, like a boss battle. Just have him, you know, spam that over and over again to get the spirit up, so. One of the good things about the stats is they seem to, once you hit a certain point, like stats, you know, it's not like diminishing returns. It's not like in the gym, like, you know, you put on a lot of muscle when you first start lifting, you know, and then progressively it slows, or you know, vice versa, you start losing weight. You know, the first 10 pounds might drop easy, but then, you know, the next, you know, 5 will be much, much harder to do. It seems like when this, you know, in this game, like, once you hit a certain threshold, it actually gets easier. You know, like once your agility starts raising up higher, your agility wants to increase more and more. And I think we see that with Maxine and her intelligence. You know, at the beginning it was hard for her to get, like, intelligence. Now she's gaining, like, intelligence, like, you know, maybe every 10 battles. So, got a Gaia Drum, cast Quake 16. We could have bought them. I mentioned what they do back in that village. Basically all they do is they cast Quake 16, which is really like Quake 4. So, deals a lot of, you know, non-elemental damage to enemies, but remember, you always divide by 4 because items, even though they cast the 16th level spell, they target all enemies on the screen, so remember, when you target by all enemies, it divides the power by 4, so it's really just a Quake 4 spell, so not particularly useful for us. Might be useful if you're using a no magic party, but we got Maxine for that. So, and hopefully you'll be back for the next episode where we finish off this cave. Thank you. Have a good day. Bye.